Hello and welcome to Stretford Paddock. My name is Joe and this is the news. Manchester United are looking to sign, as Salzburg rate him, a €65 million Benjamin Sesko. Ten Hag has approved the signing according to reports. We'll get into all of that in just a minute. We'll also be looking at the latest on Frenkie de Jong, of course. And Ronaldo is fighting back against some of the slander against him. I mean, he deems it slander. You may deem it just, an accurate sort of representation of what is going on at Manchester United at the moment. We are live, so hit like. And also, if you haven't already, hit subscribe. We go live every single time there is news for Manchester United. Watch-alongs, podcasts, all that great stuff. Hit subscribe. And hit the notification bell so you know as soon as we go live whether there is some breaking news. Again, get your thoughts on this guy in the comments. He's all over the news at the moment. He's someone that Manchester United are clearly targeting. Let's sort of start from last night on this because up until now it's kind of been bits of news here, some rumours there, and last night we started seeing some of the big hitters. We saw Laurie Whitwell come out and claim that Manchester United have genuine interest in Sesko. We also saw Fabrizio Romano as well tweeting about, speaking about Sesko to Manchester United. So let's start with what Laurie Whitwell has been saying. And he was saying that Ronaldo still wants to leave Manchester United, and United have held talks with Sesko, although Salzburg, as of right now, are reluctant to sell. There was then Fabrizio Romano coming out and saying the interest of Manchester United in Benjamin Sesko, this talented striker from Red Bull Salzburg, is concrete. Manchester United had direct contacts with his agent. He's a player appreciated by Man United. He's one of the players they are considering. We then saw news from the Mirror that Sesko's agent has entered talks with Salzburg. So United are interested in him. Salzburg are reluctant to sell, but now his agent is on the case to try and get some sort of, budge out of RB Salzburg. It says here that RB Salzburg striker Benjamin Sesko is attracting plenty of interest this summer after a breakthrough season with the Austrian champions and following an impressive start to the current campaign with 2 goals and 2 assists in 2 games, as well as netting the winner in Wednesday's 1-0 friendly over Liverpool. That interest has only skyrocketed. The Austrian club are reluctant to sell Sesko after cashing in on Karim Adeyemi to Borussia Dortmund this summer, although they value the Slovenian at around €55 million or €65 million. That's the fee there. However, the report states that United could sign him this summer by paying a fee and then loaning Sesko back to Salzburg for the season. Now, that bit to me doesn't necessarily make any sense because we need a striker. It's not like we need one for the future. We've got one striker at the moment who wants to be here, and that's Anthony Martial. And he hasn't scored more than 5 league goals in a season for 2 years. So we need players. Again, it says his agent has held crunch talks with his club over his future. Elsewhere, Ten Hag is reportedly looking to sign Bayer Leverkusen winger Moussa Diaby, who we'll get into at another time because I think that is very much the backup option to Sesko here. It's interesting, this, to me, because, like we said, we spoke about this a little bit yesterday, and then this is the first time, I think, in the last certainly the last 24 hours, that we've seen concrete evidence from, very reliable sources in Laurie Whitwell, in Fabrizio Romano, coming out and saying that United want him. Again, Laurie Whitwell said, Ronaldo has reiterated his desire to leave United, which we'll get onto in a minute. With Sporting explored as a new possible club again. We'll talk about that. It says there, talks over Benjamin Sesko, but Salzburg reluctant to sell. Let's get into a little bit about him then, because we spoke about him yesterday. Again, he's not someone that anyone has been watching for 2 years. Let's not pretend that we have. He's 19 years old. He's only just turned 19 in May as well. So he was 18 for all of last season. He's a very young player. He's someone that has scored most of his goals at FC Liefering, which is in the 2nd division in Austria. But that is basically a subsidiary of RB Salzburg. So it's essentially their second team. They are owned by, run by the Red Bull Group. It's their team. A lot of that Austrian 2nd division, which is still a professional division, but it's a lot of second teams for Austrian first division teams. It's like Rapid Vienna 2, you've got Sturm Graz 2, you've basically got Leipzig 2 in FC Lifer in there. So yes, it is a professional division, so yes, you count those goals, but you could argue it is somewhere between a league, like the Championship in terms of its structure, and actually it's a little bit more like the under-23s to a larger extent. So yes, they count as professional goals, but I wouldn't necessarily say the 22 in 44 that he got at that level is particularly representative of him as a professional footballer playing against, adults and fully established players. It is a lot of youngsters. It is a lot of academy players playing in that league. However, at RB Salzburg, he has still continued to get some goals. Last season, he got, I think it was 10 goals and 7 assists. Let me just double check that. He got, 10 goals, 7 assists in 36 appearances for Salzburg, which is obviously pretty good and very good if you consider the fact that he's 19 and it's his first season in top flight football. Just looking at him and watching him play, again, the comparisons are going to look foolish, of course, because he isn't the same level of player currently and maybe never will be. But he does have a look of a Haaland-type player. If you're trying to imagine what he's like as a player, he's very tall, he's 6'4", he's excellent in the air, absolutely brilliant in the air. He's got a great leap on him. You see a lot of players who are 6'4", or tall players who can't really get off the ground. They jump and their head's high, but their feet are this far off the ground. He's got an excellent leap on him, scoring goals from corners, from crosses. He's got that kind of poaching instinct to him as well, but he's very good in the air. He's one of those players, again, he likes the ball to his feet, turning and hitting the ball quickly. He does have that kind of Haaland, slightly like hunched over, long stride look to him. And surprisingly for his height as well, he's got very good footwork. He's fond of a sort of passing the ball from one foot to the other to try and, evade tackles and get around players. I don't know if anyone saw the highlights against Liverpool, but that little sort of heel-to-heel flick that he did to get away from, I think it was Milner on the halfway line against Liverpool. There was 2 players. He's got a nice little turn to him, a nice little bit of a dribble and a trick in his feet, which you don't always see, especially for taller players. So he seems to have a lot of things that United would want. And the other thing that he's absolutely full of, from everything I've read about him, from reports I've read about him, he's full of running. He's absolutely energetic, non-stop. He'll follow the instructions. He's willing to put the work in. He's not, I'll wait up front, you give the ball to me, yeah? He'll drop back in, he'll do the work, and he'll put the yards in to help the team. And that's exactly what Manchester United need. And we may well have that with Martial. He may well decide that the player that I've been for the last 10 years or 8 years at Manchester United is no longer the player I am. I'm going to start working hard. I'm not, he's never been a player to sort of chase back and track around as Anthony Martial. I think we all know that. Not that he doesn't work hard in other ways. But unless he changes that, United don't have a striker of that profile. Cristiano Ronaldo certainly isn't a particularly industrious centre forward. I think anyone would say that. He might be the best of all time, but he's not someone that's willing to sort of sprint around and do much defending. Sesko does seem to have that, and I think that can just be a characteristic of younger players generally a little bit. We always heard Ralf Rangnick talk about he liked players in their first or second professional contract because they've still got a point to prove. They don't disobey orders. They don't think, I'm too good to run around. They think, I need to prove myself, so I will sprint until I can't sprint anymore in order to help this team win. I think that's something that Sesko is very, very good at. He's a hard worker. Like I said, he seems to have a little bit of everything. Maybe he can up the amount of goals he's scoring. 1 in just under 4 isn't bad. And he's only a very young player. And if he continues to improve, then that would be no issue whatsoever. But I think, adding a few more goals to his game would obviously make him an even more valuable player. But I think the way Manchester United play and the way Manchester United have been playing under Ten Hag, I think we are finally getting to a point where we don't necessarily need, the best striker in the world in order to score goals. You look at City, you look at Liverpool. Roberto Firmino isn't the best striker in the world by any means. He's not even, I don't think he's world class in any facet of his game particularly. His build-up play's pretty good. Maybe that's the best you can say for him. But he's certainly not a world-class striker. He's never got the goals of a world-class striker. You look at Manchester City under Guardiola, he did everything he can to push Aguero out of that team. Someone who is undoubtedly a world-class striker, he didn't play him. You don't need to have the best finisher, the best number 9 in the world in order to score over 100 goals every single season anymore, because tactics and the way teams play and the way that players get into positions and finish off moves is more important now. So if you have someone like him who is getting in the right position, who is working hard, who is following the tactics to an absolute T, I think that could work for Manchester United far more than someone who is a better finisher and, you know, has got a history of scoring loads of goals, but won't fit the system that United are playing. And obviously, I'm sort of hinting slightly towards Cristiano Ronaldo there. And we'll move on to him in just a minute. James Woods with the Super Chat says, Joe lad, we've not been linked to a player for a while, but we could offer Norwich Brandon Williams and swap plus cash for Max Aarons. We need a right back. We need to set a deadline for De Jong too. On Max Aarons, Jay's spoken about this before. Joe was a big fan of his a couple of seasons ago before they got relegated, when the kind of interest in Aaron seemed to be at its peak. But he's someone that was at times struggling to get into that Norwich side last season. And I know he had injuries and he had some issues, but I think he needs to prove it a little bit more for me in terms of being worth, you know, Williams and cash, and, you know, desperate to get him in. I like him. I think he's a good player. He's got loads of potential still. He's still only very young. How old is Max Aarons? He's still only 22 years old, but I think we need to see a bit more from him before we can say he's good enough for Manchester United. We'll talk a little bit more about Sesko in just a minute, but let's move on to Cristiano Ronaldo, who multiple things going on here. So first of all, and I'm going to have to get my phone out for this one, he has been responding to some of the criticism against him. Firstly, he's responding on Instagram to Atletico Madrid fans with their CR7 not welcome sign with a load of crying, laughing emojis. Very nice, very fun. He's also been responding to some Instagram posts about him wanting to leave Manchester United, saying, let me just try and find this. He's basically people saying he wants to leave. He's not going to stay at Manchester United, and he's fought back and said, you know, if you keep doing the news every day, you might stop telling lies at some point. Essentially, I don't know what he's trying to argue though. That's the thing I don't get. What are you trying to argue? He knows we know he wants to leave. We know he doesn't want to stay. All of the top journalists have been reporting that he doesn't want to stay. So him coming out and saying, you know what, you're lying by saying I want to leave. Maybe there was some details in there that were a lie. Maybe the way that it was phrased had some inaccuracies in it. But it seems as though he wants to leave Manchester United, and coming out and saying that that's not true doesn't really sit well when you've got him sitting on the bench and not playing for Manchester United. And we've got Charlotte Dunker in the Times as well, who this morning has said Cristiano Ronaldo set to miss Atletico Madrid game to focus on fitness. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but pre-season matches are designed to focus on fitness. The whole point of pre-season matches is to focus on fitness. So I don't quite understand why you can't play a game because you want to focus on your fitness. He needs to play games to get fitness. Laurie Whitwell also said that he's been described as being 4 weeks behind his teammates in terms of physical and tactical readiness under Ten Hag. I suppose being described as that, we can just basic maths says they went back to training 4 weeks ago, and therefore all those other players have had 4 weeks where they've been training and he hasn't. So, you know, physical and tactical readiness under Ten Hag, presumably you only get that by training with him, and we know he's missed 4 weeks of training, so I suppose it doesn't necessarily take a genius to work out he's 4 weeks behind. Maybe that can be made up slightly more quickly by, hopefully, he's been doing some sort of fitness regime by himself. I can't imagine Cristiano Ronaldo as someone that's been sat watching Stranger Things for the last month. But in terms of tactical readiness, as we were saying the other night, he's clearly behind. And I think that's something that, to be honest, should see him start on the bench this season. I can't see a world where, he's anything other than the backup, certainly until that Liverpool game. Which is, I think, the third game of the season. We need consistency up until then. If we want to beat Liverpool, we can't have drama off the pitch. We can't have Ronaldo, taking Martial's place. You on the bench, me on the bench, you on the bench, me on the bench. I think for me, Martial has to start every single game until that Liverpool game, because it's a huge game that, and I think it's. Let me just check the fixture date on that. Manchester United versus Liverpool is the 22nd of August. and yeah, like I said, it's the third game of the season. That is such a statement game for Manchester United, because last season, United's equal highest ever defeat in the Premier League, 5-0. We've never lost by more than 5 goals in the league. And then the 4-0 as well, 5-1. Actually, I can't remember what it was. It was 9-1, wasn't it? Or 9-0 on aggregate. United need to win that game, or certainly look competent. If we go into that game with, Ronaldo's throwing his toys out the pram, Martial is now pissed off because he was there all pre-season banging loads of goals in and he gets dropped, I think we could be on for a really tricky season. We need things to be as settled and as certain as they possibly can by that game. So for me, you're 3 weeks behind, you're a month behind. Well, when's that game? 3 weeks away. So you can come in the game after that if you've proven yourself to be tactically and fitness-wise to be ready for the game. You can maybe start against Southampton. I just think it's a really bad attitude that we've seen from Ronaldo, and he's still trying to force a move out. If he does, hopefully he does, then maybe we'll have a replacement there. But otherwise, he's got to basically take his medicine. You can't say you want to leave, not turn up for training, and even when he does turn up for training, he's back now. And I don't want to play on Saturday because I'm working on my fitness. Yeah, play that game to work on your fitness. Anyway, let's see the latest on Frenkie de Jong. It wouldn't be a news without having a little look at Frenkie de Jong, would it? Manchester United is still their number one transfer target this summer. We've got Sesko reports, like we said. Sesko's agent enters talks with Salzburg as Ten Hag approves the signing. Again, that is from the Daily Mirror. But Frenkie de Jong, we know, has been Manchester United's number one signing all summer. If you haven't checked it out already, check out my interview with Kieran Maguire from The Price of Football. It's a book. It's also a podcast. He's a football finance expert. And I had a chat with him yesterday and basically went through all of the things going on at Barcelona at the minute. We looked at the debt. We looked at the money they owe players. We looked at how exactly this deferred payment salary system has been working, exactly what that means in terms of Barcelona's need to sell De Jong and how that increases the chances of him joining Manchester United. It's a really good interview. Kieran Maguire, always very well spoken and has a huge amount of knowledge on football finances, and obviously that the football finances are basically the only thing stopping him playing for Manchester United at the moment. But the latest on that is that Barcelona are open to loaning out Frenkie de Jong this summer, according to some reports. Apparently, United have already turned down the player, but that doesn't stop. Have already been turned down by the player, apparently. But this idea that there's a loan for Frenkie de Jong is now coming out, which would make some sense, just from the giving a year to let these financial disputes iron themselves out. Maybe United could do a 1-year loan with a obligation to buy at the end of it, something like that, where in these next 12 months, Frenkie de Jong can say, right, you need to pay me this money back, or they can pay his wages for this full year, and that can count towards the money that they owed him last time, if you understand what I mean. You can still have the big transfer fee, but you pay his wages for 1 more year at the increased rate that you agreed, and then we'll buy him off you next summer. Something like that could work. Doesn't necessarily mean it will happen. There are now talks that Bayern Munich would be interested, that Chelsea would also be interested. So there's a lot going on with Frenkie de Jong. The loan stuff is only being reported that I've seen in the Express so far, which means we take that with a massive pinch of salt, but always giving you the latest news that is out there. There's also a link, I believe, in the chat to that Kieran Maguire interview that we did yesterday. So check that out if you're interested. Again, if you just go on the channel, you can find that video very quickly indeed. SK says 65 million euros sounds expensive. If you compare RB sales of previous strikers, it should be on par with that. He's only 18, for God's sake. Hope wages aren't crazy. I don't think we will pay 65 million euros for Sesko. If that deal does indeed get done. Apparently, like we said, Ten Hag has approved that signing. He has agreed that Manchester United should target Benjamin Sesko, the RB Salzburg striker. If there is any updates on that, if we hear that there's a breakthrough has been made, we will, of course, be live immediately. So hit subscribe and hit the notification bell, because every single time there's news, we are live, and you don't want to miss that. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back, actually, for the brew this afternoon with Stephen Howson, and I'll see you in a bit.